beloved, I know what you're wondering. You don't say it out loud, but the ache speaks for you. Did you notice me today? Did I really matter? Or was I just passed over again? You wouldn't dare ask anyone. You're too kind for that. Too aware of everyone else's needs. So instead, you ask in silence, hoping I hear what no one else seems to. And I do. I noticed the moment your feet hit the ground this morning when you sighed before even opening your eyes. Not because you were lazy, but because something in you already felt tired before the day even began. You whispered, "Let's try again." You didn't shout it, you didn't make a speech, but I heard it like a prayer, and I responded with breath. Yes, you woke up, and that, my child, was already holy. You walked through this day with invisible weights that no one asked about. Not because they didn't care necessarily, but because they've grown used to you being the strong one, the together one, the one who gives without asking, who listens without needing, who stays even when uninvited. You learned early that attention isn't promised, that care must be earned, that presence only counts if it's productive. So you grew quiet, efficient, attentive. And somewhere along the way you began to wonder, what if I disappear and no one notices? What if I'm only valuable when I'm useful? But I want you to hear me clearly now. You have never been forgotten. Not for a breath, not for a heartbeat, not for a moment. Even when the phone stayed silent, even when no one asked how your heart was, even when you showed up again and again and still felt unseen. I saw every moment, I felt every ache, and I never looked away. You see, I do not love you for what you produce. I don't keep a tally of your usefulness. My love isn't earned, it simply is, eternal, unwavering, rooted in who I created you to be. You keep wondering why the world moves so fast, why your soul feels out of sync with the pace. It's because you were never made for performance, you were made for presence. And I have been waiting, not for you to get it right, but for you to slow down long enough to feel me near again. I know how much it hurts to feel like the world keeps turning and never pauses for you. You sit in rooms full of people and still feel invisible. You share space but not soul. You laugh on cue but not from your center. You nod in conversations while your spirit quietly whispers, "I miss being known." That whisper, that ache, it is not weakness. It is your soul remembering what it was made for. Connection, intimacy, being seen. And though others may have overlooked you, I never did. I watched you carry more than your share. Not because you were trying to impress anyone, but because no one else offered to carry it with you. I saw the moment you paused mid-task, your hands still, your eyes fixed on nothing in particular, just trying to remember the last time you felt truly chosen. I saw the hesitation in your voice, the way you started a sentence and stopped halfway through because you weren't sure anyone wanted to hear the rest. Beloved, I want to hear the rest. I always want to hear the rest. There is nothing insignificant about you. You are not background. You are not filler. You are not an extra in someone else's story. You are my handiwork, knit together with intention, called by name, formed with affection. You matter not because of who notices you, but because I never stop noticing you. Let me say it again, not as theology, but as truth. You can breathe in. You are not forgotten. I remember your laughter from before you learned to monitor it. I remember your curiosity before the world told you to be quiet. I remember your joy before you felt responsible for everyone else's comfort. You were vibrant, unapologetic, soft, strong, unfiltered. And I miss that version of you, not because you failed, but because I want you to know that person is still inside. And I am calling them out. Not with pressure, but with love. You don't have to prove anything to return to me. You don't have to perform. Just bring the ache. Tell me what's been too quiet for too long. Tell me where you feel overlooked. Tell me where it hurts to hope. I can hold it. I am not overwhelmed by your need. I do not grow weary of your repetition. I never tire of hearing your heart. And if your voice trembles when you try to speak, I will wait for the words. And if they never come, I will sit with the silence and still understand. Because I know you. You're not weak because you want to be seen. You're not selfish because you want to be chosen. You're not needy because you long for tenderness. You're human. And I made you that way, not so you would bury your desire, but so that you would bring it to me, unashamed. And I promise you what the world fails to hold, I will cradle in my hands. I do not minimize your ache. I do not dismiss your longing. I do not ignore your unseen labor. I multiply what you think has been wasted. I water the places that feel forgotten. And I write your name into my story over and over and over again. So tonight, when you wonder if you made any difference at all, when your heart asks, did anyone notice the love I gave, the space I held, the pain I hid? Let me answer you here, clearly. Yes, I noticed. I always do. I am the God who sees. And I do not forget the ones who feel forgotten. I build altars in their memory. I speak life into their silence. I rewrite their name into places they thought they'd never be called into. You are not invisible. You are not left behind. You are not forgotten. Even if no one texts you back, even if no one checks in, even if the room stays quiet, heaven has not gone silent. Heaven remembers. Heaven sees. And I do not need applause to confirm your value. You mattered today. Even when you felt like fading. Even when you wondered if it would have changed anything if you didn't show up, it would have. Because your presence carries weight. Because your soul shifts atmospheres. Because your light, though quiet, is still light. Let yourself rest now. Not because everything is resolved, but because you are not forgotten. Let this be the night you stop performing for worth. Let this be the moment you remember. I have always seen you. I have always stayed. I have always loved you, not as a background figure, but as my beloved child. Let that truth settle inside you like breath. You were not overlooked today. You are not alone tonight. You are not invisible anymore. You are seen. You are held. You are mine. Amen. My child, there are burdens you carry that no one sees. Not because you've hidden them, but because you've worn them so long they've started to look like part of you. Like the curve of your spine when you sit quietly. Like the heaviness in your sighs that no one questions anymore. Like the way you pause before answering because you've learned to measure every word through the lens of other people's comfort. That weight, it's real, and I feel it. You've convinced yourself that it's not so heavy, that others have it worse, that yours is manageable. You've said things like, I'm fine, it's just a season, this is normal, right? But beloved, I never asked you to normalize the ache. I never asked you to become a vessel of silent endurance. You carry so much emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You hold space for others when they crumble. You speak softly so others don't feel threatened. You absorb tension, keep peace, smooth over chaos, even when it costs you your own sense of peace. That is not weakness. That is strength, but it is also a strength I never intended you to carry alone. You've been the safe place. The one who listens when others unravel. The one who remains kind when others lash out. The one who quietly rearranges your day so someone else can be okay. You've been praised for it, labeled resilient, strong, selfless. And yes, some of those things are true. But here's the part that no one tells you. Even strength needs rest. Even the strong need someone to carry them. And I see how few hands ever reach toward you. You've made yourself easy to depend on. but hard to comfort, because people forget to ask if you're okay. They assume you're fine, because you've always been fine, but I know better. I know the pressure behind your smile. I know the knots in your chest that you unclench before walking into a room. I know the tears you swallow before the video call begins, and I call it holy. Not because the pain is holy, but because you are still showing up despite it. I watched you today. When your mind was racing while your face stayed calm. When you took the call even though you were emotionally empty. When you gave a kind answer even when your heart felt overlooked and raw. These moments may feel invisible to others, but they are radiant to me. You see, I am not watching for your performance. I am watching for your presence. And you have been so present. Even in weariness, even in worry, even in wondering if it makes a difference. It does. You do. But now, I want to talk about the weight. Not because you failed by carrying it, but because I never meant for you to carry it alone. You've picked up responsibilities that were never yours to begin with. You've said yes to keep peace. You've agreed to things that cost you sleep, time, and peace of mind. And while you've called it kindness, I've seen the silent frustration underneath it. You didn't speak up, not because you didn't want to, but because you feared what would happen if you did. You worried the relationship might change. You feared being seen as selfish, difficult, less available. But child, there is nothing selfish about boundaries. There is nothing holy about being crushed by demands I never placed on you. Let me say this clearly. Your soul was not designed to live under constant pressure. You were made for rhythms, not performance. You were created for communion, not constant accommodation. You were built to carry love, not the weight of unspoken obligations. Some of the things you carry are not yours. You've been holding other people's anxieties, their expectations, their disappointment, their projections, their silence. And somehow you turned their silence into a story about your worth. But beloved, their silence is not the measure of your value. Their absence is not a commentary on your lovability. I want to lift that weight off you now. It begins here. You don't have to keep earning rest. You don't have to keep proving your goodness through exhaustion. You don't have to validate your presence by doing more. I know you. I see you. And I don't need you to do one more thing to be worthy of my affection. You have carried too much for too long. You have been faithful. But now it's time for me to carry you. Let me hold the ache. Let me untangle the knots. Let me breathe into the tight spaces you've been managing alone. You've tried to manage yourself into wholeness. You've read the books, said the affirmations, created the systems, planned the retreats, made the to-do lists, and still the weight remained. Because this is not something to be fixed, it's something to be released. There is no formula that can unburden the soul. There is only trust. Only surrender. And I'm not asking for perfection. I'm asking for honesty. Tell me where it hurts. Tell me what you're tired of holding. Tell me where your arms feel weak, where your heart feels heavy, where your hope feels thin. I won't rebuke you for being tired. I won't shame you for feeling like you've reached your limit. Instead, I will come closer. Not with more demands, but with relief. The truth is, you've been afraid to let go of the weight, because somewhere, someone convinced you that your worth was attached to how much you can carry. But I define worth differently. I define it by who you are when the burdens fall to the floor. When you stop pretending, when you breathe without apology, when you cry without restraint, when you let me meet you in the unguarded spaces, that version of you, unmasked, unfiltered, weary, needing. I love that version. I don't need you to impress me. I just want to be close to you. And closeness can't happen when your arms are too full. Let me take what you've been holding, not to diminish you, but to finally make room for your peace. You don't need to be everything for everyone. You don't need to fix what isn't yours. You don't need to anticipate every need before it's spoken. You get to breathe. You get to rest. You get to be. That is not laziness. That is alignment. That is what happens when my spirit begins to reteach you what it means to be human, holy and limited, precious and unfinished. You are not here to be a machine of endless giving. You are here to live, to love, to connect, and yes, to receive. You've given so freely. Now let me give to you. Tonight, I want you to let your body speak. Let it tell you where it's been holding pain. Let your breath slow down without guilt. Let your tears come without explanation. Let your soul exhale. You are safe now. No one is asking you to carry it all anymore. Not me. Not now. You've lived under pressure long enough. You've survived on the edge of depletion. But I'm calling you back to fullness. And fullness starts with release. Release the obligation. Release the guilt. Release the need to be seen as strong. You are not failing by needing help. You are not weak by needing care. You are not less spiritual for needing space. That is not failure. That is faith. So here is my invitation tonight. Let the weight drop, not all at once, but slowly, breath by breath, moment by moment. Let me teach you how to live light again. Come to me, not when you have it all figured out, but right now, with the weight still pressing down, with the bag still packed, with the ache still fresh. I will meet you here, and I will carry you, because no weight is too invisible for me, no burden is too quiet, no sigh is too soft, no exhaustion is too late. You are not meant to be crushed by the life I gave you. You are meant to move through it with me. Let me be your rest. Let me be your relief. Let me be your rhythm, because the weight you carry is not your identity. It is just a signal that it's time to come home, and you are welcome here. Always. My beloved, there's something you've been afraid to admit out loud. A question that lingers in your breath, just beneath the surface. What if I'm too much, too emotional, too intense, too sensitive, too complicated, too everything? You've heard the sighs when you opened your heart. You've seen the discomfort in someone's eyes when your truth was deeper than they expected. You've watched the shift in tone when your feelings didn't fit the room, and slowly, without anyone telling you directly, you got the message. Shrink, so you did. You got smaller. You softened your voice. You shortened your answers. You asked less. You felt less, at least out loud. You convinced yourself that making others comfortable was safer than being fully seen. But here's what I need you to hear. You were never too much for me. Not once. Not ever. I created your depth. I formed your sensitivity. I placed the currents in your soul that move when others only feel stillness. That wasn't an accident. That was divine design. You think the ache you feel is a flaw. You think the way you carry emotion is a liability. But to me, it's holy. It's the echo of my image in you. Because I too am moved. I too feel. I too weep and rejoice and long with unmeasured depth. Your emotions are not disruptions. They are invitations into presence, into honesty, into communion. I've seen how hard you've tried to manage your intensity. You've watered yourself down so you won't overwhelm others. You've practiced restraint like a second language. You've rehearsed silence like a song you know by heart, and it's worn you out, because every time you hold back what's true in you, you begin to lose sight of what I placed inside you. Your strength, your joy, your radiant, complicated, powerful soul. You weren't made to be easy to digest. You were made to be real, and real is not always neat. Real is not always palatable. Real is not always welcome in places that only tolerate surface. But beloved, I am not afraid of your realness. Let me say this as clearly as you need it to be said. You are not too much. Not for me. Not for love. Not for belonging. You don't have to keep trimming your thoughts to fit someone else's comfort. You don't have to silence your joy because others haven't found theirs yet. You don't have to apologize for your tears, your laughter, your longing, your tenderness. Every part of you that's felt excessive, I call sacred. Every emotion you tucked away, I call worthy. Every desire you silenced, I call holy. You've been taught that spiritual means quiet, polite, low maintenance. But let me remind you, I made prophets who wept in public. I made disciples who failed loudly. I made poets who cried out in the wilderness. I do not require perfection. I require presence. And you, exactly as you are, with all your feelings, with all your unfiltered thoughts, with your heart that loves wide and breaks open, you are what I formed. You are not too loud. You are not too fragile. You are not too emotional. You are not too much. You are mine. Do you know why you feel like too much? Because you've been surrounded by people who don't know how to hold what you carry. You've been in rooms where your depth made others uncomfortable. You've been met with blank stares when you offered something sacred. And over time, you began to believe that you were the problem. But child, their inability to receive you is not a statement about your value. It is a reflection of their limitations, not your excess. Some people are not equipped to meet you in the deep. That doesn't mean you should live shallow. That doesn't mean you should empty the ocean inside you. That doesn't mean you should pretend to be still water when you were made to move. You are not the storm they fear. You are the river I set in motion. And I am not afraid of your waves. You've been praised for being easy, for being agreeable, for staying calm, and you wore those compliments like crowns, even though they cost you something sacred. You told yourself it was maturity. You called it wisdom, but some of what you've labeled peace has actually been silence. Some of what you've labeled selflessness has actually been erasure. And I want to restore what has been lost beneath your performance. Your honesty, your voice, your presence in full color. You've believed that to be loved you must be manageable. But that belief is rooted in fear, not truth. And I do not speak fear, I speak freedom. You don't have to be the edited version of yourself to be worthy of connection. You don't have to round off your edges. You don't have to shrink your desires. You don't have to lower your volume. Let me tell you this again. You are not too much. You are just enough of everything I created you to be. You are allowed to feel deeply. You are allowed to ask questions. You are allowed to have needs. You are allowed to be passionate. You are allowed to cry hard and laugh louder. You are allowed to carry wonder in one hand and grief in the other. You don't need to become less to be loved more. Love, real love, doesn't require you to split yourself in half. And I will never ask that of you. Do not fear your depth. Do not apologize for your fire. Do not edit your joy. Do not minimize your presence. Because I formed you with intensity, and I called it good. Your spirit is not a liability. Your tenderness is not a flaw. Your emotion is not a burden. Your longing is not a mistake. It's all evidence of life inside you. Of light, of movement, of the divine pulse I placed in you before the world taught you to be quiet. Come out of hiding. Let your fullness breathe. Let your voice speak. Let your soul stretch back into its rightful shape. You were not created for containment. You were made for communion, and I delight in every part of you, especially the parts that others called too much. So when the world tells you to quiet down, I'll be the voice that says, speak, child. When others say you're overwhelming, I'll whisper, you are overflowing with life. When you're tempted to shut down again, I'll remind you, you are allowed to be. And when you fear that your presence is too big for the room, I'll be the one expanding the walls to fit you. Because I didn't create you to fit in small places. I created you to reflect me, and I am not small. You are not too much. You are exactly enough for what I've called you to, for the spaces I'm sending you into, for the love I've prepared for you, for the life that is awakening inside you again. Let this be the moment you stop shrinking. Let this be the breath where you take up space again, without apology. Let this be the day you believe me when I say, you are not too much. You are mine. You are just right. My beloved, you've learned how to be quiet, not just with your mouth, but with your soul. You've mastered the art of holding it all in. The thoughts, the doubts, the questions, the needs you decided weren't worth voicing. Not because you don't feel deeply, but because you've grown used to believing that no one listens. You've watched too many words fall flat. You've seen too many faces glaze over. You've reached out with trembling vulnerability, only to be met with polite nods, blank responses, or worse, silence. And now, silence feels safer than the risk of not being received. But here's what I want you to know. I hear the silence too. Not just the words you've spoken, but the ones you didn't. The ones that got caught in your throat. The ones you rehearsed in your mind but never released. The ones that sat like prayers unsent, like letters you didn't have the courage to mail. I hear them all. There is no silence in you that escapes me. Do you know what silence says? It says, I'm afraid of not mattering. It says, I've been here before and no one responded. It says, I don't want to be a burden. It says, it's easier to be quiet than to hope. But my child, I have never been uncomfortable with your truth. I've never been irritated by your longings. I've never grown tired of your voice, even when it's uncertain, trembling, or unfinished. Your silence may feel empty to others, but to me, it's full of ache, full of reverence, full of unspoken worship. You don't need eloquence to be understood. You don't need clarity to be heard. You don't need volume to be received. I move in silence too, and I move in yours. The world rewards loudness, but I reward truth. And truth doesn't always roar. Sometimes it barely breathes. Sometimes truth is a sigh, a tear, a pause, a breath held in until the world feels safe again. And I am with you in all of it. I remember the day you stopped speaking. Not outwardly, you still answered messages, still smiled, still played the part. But inwardly, something changed. You stopped bringing your full self into conversations. You started hiding what you really thought, what you really needed, what you truly hoped for. Because silence felt easier than disappointment. Because invisibility felt safer than exposure. Because you decided that if no one was asking, then no one really wanted to know. But I am asking, how are you? Not the version you offer in passing, but the truth that lives underneath your practiced replies. How is your soul? Tell me, not because I don't know, but because you need to know that you're still allowed to speak. You've convinced yourself that silence is strength. But child, silence is not always holy. Sometimes it's just unhealed pain. Sometimes it's survival, sometimes it's grief in disguise. And while I never shame your silence, I will always call you out of hiding, because your voice was meant to be heard, even if it quivers, even if it takes time, even if it stumbles. You don't have to get it right. You just have to be real. There's a lie you've believed that says, if it matters enough, someone will notice. And every time no one did, you took that as confirmation that your heart wasn't worth hearing. But that's not the truth. That's not how I measure worth. Your words don't lose value just because others didn't lean in. Your silence isn't consent to being unseen, and your ache for connection is not too much. I see you even when you're quiet. I hear you even when you don't speak. There is no lost moment in my presence. No unsent prayer that goes unheard. No emotion too quiet for me to feel. Do you remember the times you cried alone, face buried in a pillow, unsure if your tears mattered? They did. Do you remember the conversations where you felt invisible, where you said what you could but held back what you really meant? I was listening to both. Do you remember the times you sat in silence, not because you had nothing to say, but because you doubted anyone would stay to listen? I stayed. I always stay. Let me tell you this now. You are allowed to speak again. You are allowed to bring your full voice to me. Not because you figured it all out. Not because your emotions are now easier to explain, but because this is what I long for. Not your perfection, but your presence. I want the unfiltered version, the messy version, the honest version. I don't flinch. I don't withdraw. I don't tune out. I lean in. You've been waiting for someone to ask, what's going on beneath the surface? So I am asking now, not for my sake, but for yours. Tell me what you've buried beneath your smile. Tell me what you've swallowed for the sake of peace. Tell me what you wish someone would finally notice. I won't look away, even if the words are halting, even if all you can do is sit in my presence and weep. That is prayer. That is communion. That is worship. You've thought that silence was safer, but in silence, you also forgot the sound of your own voice. And I miss it. I miss the way you used to speak with wonder. I miss the way your prayers used to stretch wide. I miss the way you used to ask bold questions. I miss the way your heart used to dream aloud. Those parts of you are still alive. They are just quiet, and I'm calling them out of the shadows again. Not with pressure, with tenderness, not with shame, with delight, not with urgency, with patience. Your silence has a sound in heaven. It echoes in my heart. It reverberates through eternity. You are not lost in the stillness. You are not forgotten in the hush. Let it come slowly if it must. Let your voice return like a sunrise, soft, steady, certain. I will wait for it. I always do. And when you begin to speak again, when the first words return, even if it's only a whisper, you will find me closer than ever before. You don't have to shout to be heard. You don't have to perform to be received. You only have to be present. I will always meet you there. So speak again, not for their understanding, but for your own soul's release. Speak again, not because it's neat, but because it's needed. Speak again, because you are not forgotten, because your voice still matters, because your silence was never the end. There's more in you, and I'm listening. Still, always. Now, my beloved, there are places in you that still hurt, not loudly, not with obvious cries, but quietly, just beneath the surface. Like bruises no one can see, like wounds covered with laughter, like memories you've learned to tiptoe around so they don't sting. You've told yourself, it's fine, I'm fine, it's in the past. But your body remembers, your soul remembers, and I remember too. You've learned how to live with pain. You've made peace with discomfort. You've rearranged your life around the ache so skillfully that sometimes you forget it's still there. Until a certain song plays, until a tone of voice catches you off guard, until someone else's story sounds just a little too much like yours. And suddenly, the pain reappears, uninvited, unspoken, unresolved. But child, pain that returns is not weakness. It's a signal. Not that you've failed to move on, but that something inside still longs to be held, and I want to hold it. I am not afraid of your ache. I will not hurry you through it. I will not tell you to get over it. I will not say, you should be past this by now. That's not my voice. That's not my way. I move slowly, deliberately, gently. I will never rush your healing to fit someone else's timeline. There are places in you that still need tending, places that never received proper care, places where someone should have said, "That was wrong. You deserved better." But no one did. So instead you internalized the silence. You blamed yourself. You learned to minimize. You called survival strength and numbness peace. But I want to offer you something more than survival. I want to give you healing, not just for your mind, but for your memory. Not to erase what happened, but to meet you in it again, this time with love. There is no pain in you I won't touch. No story I won't sit beside. No scar I'll ever be ashamed of. You don't need to clean it up first. You don't need to translate it into something inspiring. You don't need to make sense of it for me to be near. Let me near anyway. Let me into the places that still throb when you're quiet. The places you haven't spoken of in years. The places where grief lingers like fog. You may not have language for it all. That's okay. I speak ache fluently. Tell me where it hurts. Even if the wound is old. Even if you've stopped expecting healing. Even if you're afraid it will never feel different. Just show me. Even if it's trembling. Even if it's messy. Even if it's full of questions you never got answered. Let me be with you in the pain, not just after it's gone. You've been taught that healing means forgetting, that moving on means never feeling again. But I never asked you to forget. I asked you to remember with me beside you. Because the only thing more painful than the ache is facing it alone. And you were never meant to carry your sorrow in isolation. You were made for communion, for presence, for gentle restoration. Some of your ache doesn't even come from one moment. It comes from years of being unseen, from holding too much, from being strong too long, from being told you're so resilient when what you really needed was to be held. Resilience is a gift, but it was never meant to replace comfort. You need both, and I offer both. Strength and softness, truth and tenderness, rebuilding and rest. Let me sit with you in the unhealed places. You don't need to explain. You don't need to justify why it still hurts. You don't need to pretend it doesn't. Just let me be with you in it. Like I was with the broken-hearted. Like I was with the woman at the well. Like I was with the man who said, "Help my unbelief." I didn't need them to be whole before I loved them. I loved them into wholeness, and I will do the same for you. I know you've tried to patch the ache, to distract it, to discipline it, to disguise it as something more manageable. But pain ignored doesn't heal, it hides. It burrows deep, and it slowly reshapes the way you love, trust, and dream. But now, I'm inviting it into the light. Not to expose you, but to unburden you. Some of what hurts in you is tender because it was never named. So let's name it together. That moment you were abandoned. That mattered. That relationship that ended without closure. That was real loss. That season you gave everything and felt nothing in return. That hurt. That disappointment you told yourself to ignore. It left a mark. And it's okay to say so. It's okay to grieve what you never got to grieve. It's okay to feel what no one gave you space to feel. You are not being dramatic. You are being honest. And honesty is how healing begins. I will not shame you for feeling. I will not silence your tears. I will not compare your ache to someone else's. Pain is not a competition. It is a cry for care, and I will always respond to it. Every ache in you is a doorway for me to come closer. So don't shut the door. Even if it hurts to keep it open, I promise I will not walk past it. I will walk into it with gentleness, with peace, with comfort deeper than understanding. Let me tend the ache. Let me touch the rawness. Let me pour oil on what's been rubbed raw by time and disappointment. Let me bring softness to the places that harden just to survive. I am not in a hurry. I will not force it, but I will not stop knocking either, because I want you whole, and wholeness requires honesty. You may feel like you're falling apart, but I see something different. I see a heart finally letting go of the pressure to hold it all together. I see soil breaking open for something new to grow. I see breath returning. I see restoration unfolding slowly, tenderly, beautifully, and no part of you is disqualified from healing. Not the numb parts, not the hidden parts, not the angry parts, not the still bleeding parts. They all belong here. They all belong in my hands, so lay them down, not to forget them, but to let me carry them with you. Let me sing over the places that ache. Let me speak into the stories that still sting. Let me wrap my presence around the parts of you that feel unfinished. You don't need to heal by yourself. You never did. I am here, always. Not after the ache, but in the middle of it, and I will stay until it softens. I will stay until it lifts. I will stay until peace returns like a slow, holy river. Because I don't just fix pain. I sit with it, I redeem it, I tend to it, like a gardener, like a healer, like a father. So don't rush the process, don't numb the feeling, don't silence the ache, let it speak, and I will answer. Not always with words, but with presence, not always with explanations, but with healing. You are not alone in your pain, you are not abandoned in your ache. You are not too far gone to be tended to. You are mine, and I take care of what is mine, always. My beloved, you have poured out so much of yourself, not for applause, not for recognition, but simply because love lives in you, because compassion runs through your veins, because you couldn't turn away, even when no one noticed you stayed. This chapter of your life has been written in invisible ink. No headlines, no standing ovations, just quiet faithfulness, quiet giving, quiet love. But I saw all of it. I saw the meals you made when your body was tired, the smiles you offered when your heart was breaking, the forgiveness you gave when it wasn't asked for, the prayers you whispered over people who never knew they were being covered. You didn't do it for reward. You did it because it was right, because it was holy, because your soul knew how to love when others forgot how to see. But even love that expects nothing in return still aches when it's overlooked. And I need you to know something sacred. Nothing you've given in love has gone unseen by me. I saw when you held back your own grief to be strong for someone else. I saw when you stayed in the room after others left, when you kept praying after others gave up, when you carried the weight of someone else's healing as if it were your own. That kind of love is not lightweight. It is heavy. It is sacred. It is a hidden ministry, and heaven keeps record of what earth ignores. You've wondered, does any of this matter? Would anyone notice if I stopped showing up? Does love still count if no one sees it? Let me answer you clearly, yes. Yes, it matters. Yes, I notice. Yes, it counts. Love without applause is still love. Faithfulness in the dark still echoes in eternity. Kindness that isn't returned still releases my presence into the world. I've been with you in every unseen gesture. Every moment when you chose compassion instead of resentment. Every time you served when your hands were shaking. Every time you stayed soft when it would have been easier to harden. That's not small. That's not forgettable. That's not wasted. That is what heaven calls holy. You've carried others, sometimes emotionally, sometimes spiritually, sometimes just by being the one who never stopped believing in them. But now you feel tired, and you don't know why. Let me tell you gently, you are feeling the weight of invisible labor, the unseen giving, the daily grace, the conversations that took everything from you, the encouragement you gave out of an almost empty well. You've loved from a deep place, But few have asked how deep that place really goes. And now you're weary, not because you did something wrong, but because you've been quietly faithful for so long. You don't have to prove your love. It was real when they didn't thank you. It was real when they misunderstood your intentions. It was real when they took without asking how much it cost you. Love doesn't need validation to exist, but I want you to know I validate it anyway. Because I know what it took. I know how it drained you. I know how you wrestled with resentment but chose kindness instead. I know how you almost walked away but stayed because love told you to. That kind of obedience is not weak. That kind of endurance is not ordinary. That kind of love is not invisible to me. There is a quiet form of holiness the world rarely sees. It is not loud. It does not announce itself. It does not demand attention. But it changes rooms. It carries peace. It heals wounds. It breaks cycles. It builds altars in secret places. And that holiness lives in you. You have given so many invisible gifts. Presence, encouragement, patience, intercession, empathy. Things that don't come with thank you cards. Things that don't look big until they are gone. Things that people miss only when the room feels emptier without you. But I never missed them. When others walked past, I stood still. When others forgot, I remembered. When others received, I recorded. Not because I needed a record for reward, but because love always leaves a mark. And your love left marks in heaven. You've asked, why do I feel so invisible when I love so deeply? It's because the world sees the loudest voices, but I see the truest hearts, and yours has been true, so very true, even when it broke, even when it questioned, even when it wanted to stop reaching. You stayed, you gave, you showed up again, and again, and again. You've confused exhaustion with failure, but beloved, exhaustion is not failure. It's just your soul asking to be seen too. Let me serve you now. You who have served everyone else. You who have listened when no one asked how you were doing. You who have stayed soft in a world that rewards hardness. Let me wash your feet with my presence. Let me anoint your tired hands. Let me speak honor over every hidden act of love. You are not invisible in my kingdom. Your labor is not lost. And I want to tell you something you've rarely heard. Thank you. Thank you for loving when it hurt. Thank you for giving when it cost you. Thank you for staying when it would have been easier to walk away. Thank you for choosing me when everything around you said, protect yourself. You chose love, and love always wins, even when it feels unseen. Now let me remind you of something eternal. What you've planted in love will grow. What you've sown in tears will bloom. What you've given in secret will be multiplied in grace. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is forgotten. Nothing is small when love is involved. And I will repay you. Not like the world does, but in the way heaven restores, with joy that can't be stolen. With peace that makes no sense. With a heart that no longer needs applause to know its worth. You may feel tired now, but you are not empty. You are full of seed. You are full of heaven's fragrance. You are full of quiet miracles. So breathe now. Rest in the truth that your labor of love has been seen, received, honored. Let me carry you now. Let me restore you. Let me speak over the space in you that gave and gave and gave. You are not just the one who loves. You are the one who is loved, deeply, fully, eternally. And I will never stop noticing your love, even when no one else does, because you are mine. And nothing you've done in love has ever gone unnoticed. My beloved, you've made space for so many. You've been the one who adjusts, who bends, who clears room at the table, even when no one saved you a seat. You've widened your arms, softened your tone, lowered your needs, and told yourself it was holy to do so, and in many ways, it was. There is a deep, sacred strength in your generosity, in your ability to hold others when they were breaking. In the eye, where you made others feel safe even when you didn't feel safe yourself. But I have a question for you now, one whispered in love, not in correction. Where is the space for you? You've held so much. People's grief, their anger, their uncertainty, their silence. You've adjusted your boundaries so they'd feel more comfortable. You've kept your opinions to yourself so they wouldn't feel challenged. You've smiled in moments that deserved honesty, and somehow, along the way, you stopped expecting anyone to ask, "But what do you need?" So I'm asking you now, what do you need? Not the polite answer. Not the filtered version. Not what you think I want to hear. What does your soul need? Where is the room for your voice? For your ache? For your becoming? You've made yourself the shelter for so many storms. And I see the toll it's taken. I see the fatigue behind your kindness. I see the confusion behind your flexibility. I see how much you've convinced yourself it's noble to go unnoticed, as long as everyone else feels seen. But child, you are not a structure for others to lean on while you collapse inside. You are not just the space maker. You are a soul. You are a heart. You are a person with needs as real and valid as those you've made space for, and it's time you remember that. You've heard it said, love is sacrificial, and it is. But sacrifice does not mean self-erasure. It does not mean you disappear so others can breathe easier. It does not mean you absorb dysfunction and call it grace. True love doesn't require you to silence yourself. You can be compassionate and clear. You can be gentle and honest. You can create space for others without vacating yourself. And I am here to help you reclaim that balance. Let me say something that may feel unfamiliar to you. Your needs matter. Yes, yours, not just theirs, not just the ones you help, protect, carry, and care for. Yours, your longing for rest, your desire for depth, your hope for reciprocity, your ache to be seen not just as the helper, but as the human. That is not selfish, that is not weak, that is not too much. That is holy desire. And I placed it there. You've been the one who held the room together. The invisible glue, the quiet strength, the reliable one. But even glue needs time to breathe. Even strength needs somewhere to rest. Even reliability needs replenishing. And I am offering you that space now. Not as a reward, but as a right. Let me show you a deeper truth. Love is not only about who you make space for. It is also about who makes space for you. And if no one else has done that yet, I will. I will make space for your anger, your joy, your sadness, your questions, your laughter, your confusion, your wisdom. I want the full you, not the edited version you've used to make others feel safe. You've spent years shaping yourself around others. And yes, there was beauty in that. Yes, I saw your love in every act of humility. Yes, I was near every time you laid your desires aside so someone else could flourish. But now I want to ask you, will you let me make space for you? You don't have to fold inward to be faithful. You don't have to shrink to be spiritual. You don't have to dim so others can shine. There is enough light for everyone. There is enough grace to go around. There is room for your heart here. You've become so good at helping others find their place that you stopped asking if you had one too. But you do, not just in service, not just as support, but as someone who belongs, as someone who matters, as someone who doesn't need to earn a seat at the table they helped build. Your voice belongs here. Your presence belongs here. Your story belongs here. You are not just a vessel for others' healing. You are worthy of healing too. So let's talk about the space you've made, the children you nurtured, the friends you carried, the partners you forgave, the strangers you encouraged, the teams you uplifted, the family members you made excuses for when they didn't show up for you. You have stretched and stretched until even your silence was a form of generosity. But I want to call you into a different kind of giving now. Giving space to yourself. To feel, to speak, to not be okay, to change, to grow. This isn't abandonment of others, this is alignment with me. There are new rooms I want to bring you into, not because you'll hold them together, but because they are for you this time. Places where you don't have to prove your worth by being useful. Places where your presence is not a background feature, but a centerpiece of design. Places where you are celebrated, not just needed. You are not only a refuge for others, you are a soul worthy of being met. And I am meeting you now. You are allowed to make space for your own healing, for your own voice, for your own return to fullness. You don't have to apologize for needing that. You don't have to wait for permission. I've already granted it. Come now. Step into the space I've prepared for you. A space not built on expectation, but on grace. Not on performance, but on presence. Not on self-sacrifice, but on divine delight. Here, you are not what you do for others. You are simply mine. And I cherish the one who has spent so long cherishing everyone else. Rest now. You've made space for the world. Now let me make space for you. You are not forgotten. You are not just the foundation under someone else's house. You are a temple, a dwelling place, a beloved sanctuary. Let me fill the space in you with my peace, my presence, my love. You've given enough for today. Now receive. My beloved, you didn't mean to go numb. It wasn't something you chose. It was something that crept in, quietly, slowly, until you could no longer tell the difference between rest and resignation. You used to feel everything. Joy would move through you like music. Grief would echo like a prayer. Hope would spark like a flame. But now, everything feels distant, muted, flat. You're still breathing, still moving, still showing up. But somewhere along the way, your spirit began to dim. And I want you to know, I noticed. I noticed when laughter stopped coming easily. I noticed when wonder became hard work. I noticed when your prayers grew shorter, more quiet than spoken. I noticed when your heart stopped reaching, not out of anger, but because it was just so tired. Numbness isn't always rebellion. Sometimes it's the body's way of saying, I've been holding too much for too long. And child, I understand. You've carried more than anyone knows. You've tried to keep going when what you really needed was to stop, to breathe, to cry, to feel without fixing. Let me be clear, you are not broken because you feel numb. You are not failing. You are not faithless. You are not falling behind. You are human, and your heart has simply grown weary. You felt too much for too long with too little support. You've tended to others' pain while neglecting your own. You've whispered, I'm okay, so often that you began to believe silence was safer than sincerity. But I'm not afraid of your silence, and I'm not dismayed by your numbness. In fact, I come closer in it. Numbness is not the end of your story. It is a pause, a hush, a signal that something in you needs tending, not from productivity, but from presence. So I am here, not to push you, not to stir up noise, but to sit with you in the stillness you cannot name. You don't have to snap out of it. You don't have to fake liveliness. You don't have to summon emotions that aren't ready to rise. You only need to be here. And I will meet you in the place where feelings have gone quiet. I know this isn't who you used to be. You remember the days when your heart responded quickly, when you cried in worship, when nature made your soul dance, when a simple word could move you to tears. Now it's different. The spark is buried. The senses are dulled. But let me tell you something. Numbness is not death. It's dormancy. And even dormant seeds still carry life. There is life in you yet. There is tenderness waiting beneath the quiet. There are tears that haven't been given permission to fall. There are songs still buried in your chest, and you don't have to rush their return. Let them come slowly. Let healing come without pressure. You've been trying to fix what needs to be felt. But I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to find you, even here, even now. You've associated numbness with failure. You've said things like, if I had more faith, I'd feel something. If I really trusted God, I wouldn't feel this empty. But I need you to hear this. Numbness is not the absence of faith. It's the cry for deeper intimacy. Your heart has shut down in places where it didn't feel safe to stay open, and that makes sense. You've been hurt. You've been ignored. You've been asked to keep giving when no one asked if you had anything left. So of course you feel quiet. Of course parts of you have gone still. That is not weakness. That is protection. And now I'm inviting you to let me protect you instead. I will not ask for more than you can give. I will not demand that you feel something before I come near. I will not scold your silence. I will simply sit beside it. And when the moment comes, when the tears return, when the hope stirs, when the breath deepens, I will still be here. Because I never left. You are not less spiritual because your emotions are tired. You are not less loved because your heart feels dull. You are not less holy because you're moving through life in quiet survival. I see the flicker in you, the one that refuses to go out, the one that shows up, that keeps going, that says, I don't feel much, but I'm still here. That is not failure. That is faith. Even numbness can become sacred when you let me meet you in it. You don't have to feel passion to be loved. You don't have to overflow with joy to be chosen. You don't have to be vibrant to belong. You just have to be, and that's enough for me. So tonight, let's not rush to awaken what still needs rest. Let's just sit. Let's let silence be sacred. Let's let numbness be acknowledged. Let's let your soul breathe without expectation. You've done enough for today. You don't need to manufacture meaning. You don't need to stir emotion like it's proof of intimacy. My nearness is not earned by feeling, it is given by grace. Let this be your prayer tonight. God, I don't feel much right now, but I still want you. Even if I don't know how to reach for you, I trust that you're reaching for me. And I am. I always am. You are not alone in your numbness. You are not failing in your stillness. You are not lost in your quiet. You are simply on holy pause. And I am with you in it. The warmth will return, the tears will soften again, the joy will rise, the color will come back. But for now, let your stillness be enough. You are not disconnected, you are being tenderly reconnected, slowly, honestly, gently. I am not disappointed in your numbness, I am drawing near to it, because that too is part of the healing. My beloved, you say you want to be seen, and I believe you. But I also know that being seen comes with a cost you've paid before. And it hurt. You've opened your heart in the past, only to watch it misunderstood. You've revealed your wounds, and others responded with discomfort, dismissal, or distance. And so now, even when your soul whispers, I hope they notice me, there's another whisper just as loud. But what if they do? Because deep down, you're not just afraid of being invisible. You're afraid of being truly seen and still left. I know the weight of that fear. I know how it's shaped the way you speak, the way you move through rooms, the way you reveal only parts of yourself, just enough to connect, but not enough to be fully exposed. You want to be known, but you've also learned to hide. And I understand why. Being seen means being known, and being known means being vulnerable. And vulnerability, that's where the deepest wounds have happened. You've learned how to wear your strength like armor. You've smiled through ache. You've answered, I'm okay, when you weren't. You've shared selectively, testing waters, measuring tone, watching for signs of safety before you step in too far. You've made yourself digestible, pleasant, predictable, because unpredictability felt unsafe and honesty felt too risky. But let me ask you gently, what if you didn't have to edit yourself to belong? What if being fully seen wasn't something to fear, but something to receive? You were not created to perform closeness. You were created for connection. Real, raw, holy connection. Not the kind that requires you to impress. Not the kind that demands you hide the messy parts. Not the kind that disappears when you stop being agreeable. But the kind that says, I see you, and I'm staying. And that's how I see you now. Not through layers, not through the role you play, not through the words you rehearse. I see you, the real you. The one behind the practiced calm. The one who's brave enough to stay soft. The one who's learned to survive in quiet ways. The one who wants to be chosen without having to disappear first. And let me tell you this in the voice of eternity. You are already chosen. Not despite your depth. Not despite your questions. Not despite your intensity. But because of them. Because I made you in my image. And I do not fear what is honest. I do not flinch when your voice rises. I do not walk away when your soul shows up unfiltered. I know what it cost you to hide. The inner shrinking, the loneliness that came even in company, the ache of being celebrated, for being easy, when you long to be loved for being real. You've learned how to silence your soul just to keep the peace. But that peace was never peace. It was fear dressed as humility, and now I want to bring you out of that. Not into spotlight. Not into performance, but into presence, into the kind of love that sees everything and stays. You've believed that to be spiritual means to be quiet, to be small, to be agreeable. But I created you to reflect me, and I am not small. I am not silent. I am not afraid of being known. Neither are you. That fear isn't your identity. It's a scar. And I'm healing it now. Let me into the places you've kept hidden, not because they're shameful, but because they've been lonely. Let me look at the parts of you you've edited out of every version you've shown others, the unpolished truth. The honest longing, the child still asking, if I'm not needed, will they still love me? Yes, yes I will, because I never loved you for your usefulness. I never stayed because of your performance. I stayed because you are mine, always mine. Even in fear, even in hiding, you think being seen means being exposed. But with me, being seen means being embraced. It means rest. It means not having to prove anything. It means exhaling the pressure to present a polished version of your heart. There is nothing in you that scares me away. Not the anxiety, not the need, not the longing. You don't have to apologize for wanting to be loved. That desire is not a flaw. It is a design. It's the echo of Eden in your soul. It's the sound of belonging calling you home. I will not ask you to stay invisible to protect other people's comfort. I will not require you to hide the gifts I placed in you. I will not silence your tenderness. I am the God who sees, and I still came close. And now, I'm inviting you to let others see too. Not everyone, not all at once, but those I bring into your life who carry the same language of love. Safe people, soft people, people who see you and don't flinch. You've spent so long trying to be small enough to be accepted, but I want to expand you, to bring your full voice back, to return your courage, to call you visible, because that's what you are. And yes, there will be moments when you still feel the fear of being too much, the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of being loved and then abandoned. But I will be with you in that fear, and I will not leave. You can take the risk of being seen because I've already secured your place in love. Even if others walk away, I won't. Even if others stop listening, I'm still here. Even if others misunderstand, I still understand. So take a breath. Let your heart open again. Let your soul peek out from behind the curtain. Let your voice rise, imperfect, trembling, true. And when it does, know this: I see you, and I'm not going anywhere. You were never too much to be loved. You were simply too sacred to be handled casually. Now I'm teaching you how to trust again. Not just others, but your own voice, your own reflection, your own presence. You are worth being seen, not for what you do, but for who you are. Step forward. Let the light fall on you gently, not as judgment, but as welcome. You were never made to hide forever. You were made to reflect glory, and glory is never afraid to be seen. My beloved, there was a time when your voice moved freely, when you spoke not to impress, but because something true was rising inside of you. You didn't filter every word. You didn't rehearse every sentence. You didn't shrink your soul to fit the room. You spoke from your heart, from your wonder, from your ache, from your joy, and it was holy. Until the moment it wasn't safe anymore. I remember when the silence started, not outside of you, but inside. I remember when someone told you your words were too much, too emotional, too intense, or simply not necessary. I remember when your voice met rejection, not because you were wrong, but because they didn't know how to receive what was real. And I saw what happened next. You quieted, not just your volume, but your honesty, your creativity, your ideas, your story. Piece by piece, you pulled yourself back into silence. But child, the world didn't need a quieter you. It needed a truer you. It still does. And I know what it's cost you to stay silent. I know how many thoughts you've swallowed, how many moments you've withheld your heart, how many times you've edited yourself to avoid the risk of being misunderstood. I know how many times you've stayed quiet, not because you had nothing to say, but because you stopped believing your voice would make a difference. But I never asked you to bury what I gave you. Your voice is not a liability. Your voice is not a mistake. Your voice is not too late to matter. I gave it to you on purpose, not just your literal voice, but your perspective, your creativity, your wisdom, your story. The way you see the world, the way you feel, the way you articulate beauty and truth and longing. It all matters to me. Let me ask you something gently. When did you stop believing your words held weight? Was it when you were interrupted one too many times? Was it when your questions were labeled as rebellion? Was it when your vulnerability was used against you? Whatever the moment was, I was there. And I grieved it with you. Because when your voice was silenced, something sacred in you went quiet too. But it's not gone, it's not lost, it's not dead. It's waiting to rise again, waiting to find breath, waiting to be trusted again, not just by others, but by you. So let's begin with this. You're allowed to speak again, even if it's messy, even if it's not perfectly timed, even if it's different than what people expect. You don't have to sound like them. You don't have to agree with everyone. You don't have to water down your truth to make it more palatable. Your voice was not made to echo others. It was made to reveal me through you. You've believed that silence kept you safe, and maybe for a while it did. But now it's keeping you small. And I did not create you for smallness. I created you to carry words that bring life, words that shift atmospheres, words that release freedom, and those words live in you. Even now, even after all the silence, even after all the fear. Let me tell you what your voice still carries. It carries the sound of your healing. It carries the resonance of your story. It carries the cadence of compassion forged through pain. It carries the fire of truth shaped by mercy. Don't underestimate what lives inside your breath. When you speak from the place I dwell in you, your words become more than sound. They become light, they become keys, they become balm. So speak again, write again, sing again, ask again, pray out loud again, say what's true again, even if your voice shakes, even if your hands tremble, even if you're not sure anyone is listening. I am, and heaven echoes when you do. You've been told that quietness is safer, but I want you to learn that expression can be healing. Not because it's always understood, but because it brings your soul back into alignment. There's a version of you that's been waiting to come home. The version that doesn't second-guess every word, that doesn't shrink back at every raised eyebrow, that doesn't over-edit what's meant to be free. That version is coming alive again. And your voice is the sound of resurrection. You are not fragile. You are not unstable. You are not too complicated to be heard. You are thoughtful. You are layered. You are carrying depth the world desperately needs. And it's time for that depth to speak again. Let me rebuild your confidence. Let me restore your boldness. Let me be the echo that reminds you have something to say. Even if you've been silent for years, even if you've never said it out loud, even if you're not sure where to begin here, with a whisper, with a journal, with a prayer, with a sentence that feels unfinished. I'll meet you in the middle of your return, because you're not returning to performance, you're returning to presence, to honesty, to the full spectrum of your voice. Not just what others like to hear, but what your soul truly needs to say. This is not about being loud. This is about being true. Your voice matters. Your heart matters. Your words matter. Your story matters. Your presence matters. And I will not let it stay buried in silence any longer. So rise now, beloved, not in volume, but in trust. Let your voice return. Let it be raw, let it be sacred, let it be whole again. You are not too late, you are not too quiet, you are not too far gone. You are returning to the sound I placed inside you from the very beginning. Speak again. I'm listening, and the world is waiting. My beloved, you've been showing up, but not always as yourself. You've been present in body, but somewhere along the way, your spirit started standing off to the side, watching from a safe distance, smiling on cue, functioning out of memory. You've walked through rooms where you felt unseen, so you stopped bringing your whole self. You learned to give only what was expected, never what was sacred. And now you're wondering, where did I go? Let's find you again. This is not a rebuke. This is a rescue. Because I miss you. Not your performance, not your productivity, not your politeness. You, the fully present, fully alive, fully seen version of you. The one who laughs before checking if it's appropriate. The one who prays out loud without editing. The one who sings even when off key. The one who isn't just filling space, but inhabiting it. That version of you hasn't disappeared. She's just waiting for permission to return. And I'm giving that permission now. Come back to your life. Not the version you perform, but the one I designed. The one where your presence matters. Not just to others, but to you. You've been carrying responsibility like a shield. You've been managing impressions like survival. You've been tending to everyone's needs, but your own. But what if presence is not about what you do, but who you are when you stop doing? Let me say it plainly. You don't have to perform to be loved. You don't have to please to be welcomed. You don't have to disappear to make room for others. You can show up, flawed, unfinished, honest, human, and I will be there. You've mistaken survival for surrender. But child, I didn't call you to survive your own life. I called you to live it, to inhabit your moments, to taste joy again, to weep without shame, to breathe without apology. That is presence, and that is what I'm restoring in you. Presence doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean constant enthusiasm. It means you are here, not numbed, not distracted, not 2 steps ahead in fear or 2 steps behind in regret, but here now, breathing, belonging, becoming. Let that be enough for today. You've believed that your value came from how much you could handle, how available you were, how useful you remained in crisis. But now, I'm showing you a better truth. You are valuable simply because you exist. Not for your opinions, not for your gifts, not for your self-control, but because I made you. And my delight is not based on your performance. It's based on my nature, and I am love. There are places in your heart that disconnected to survive. I understand. But survival is not the final destination. Resurrection is, and resurrection begins with presence. So return to your own heartbeat, return to your own skin, return to the moments you've been watching from a distance. Let your laughter be real again. Let your hunger speak again. Let your dreams knock again. I am here to help you answer. You don't have to fear your emotions. You don't have to fear stillness. You don't have to fear what will rise when you pause long enough to feel. I will hold what rises. I will hold you. Let this be the day you choose not just to function, but to feel. Not just to speak, but to mean it. Not just to exist, but to live. Fully, present, awake. You've been on autopilot for too long. Going through motions, following expectations, checking boxes others handed you. But what if I'm rewriting the rhythm of your days, not with more tasks, but with more presence? Moments that feel like peace, conversations that feel like home, laughter that surprises you, stillness that doesn't accuse but invites. That is the restoration I'm offering. Let's be honest, it's easier to disappear, to stay busy, to detach, to serve without showing up emotionally, to love without letting people close. But that isn't the life I've called you to. I've called you to connection, to communion, to presence. First with me, then with yourself, then with others. You don't have to hide behind helping. You don't have to get lost inside of service. You are not just what you do. You are someone I desire to be with. Let's start here. Sit with me, not with a list, not with an apology, not with a mask, just you. If your thoughts wander, let them. If your tears come, let them. If your breath trembles, that's okay. You are still showing up. And that is more than enough. This is the invitation. Come back to yourself. Come back to your story. Come back to the day you're living. Come back to the God who never left. I will teach you how to be present again, not as a duty, but as a gift. You've been missed by the world, by your own heart, by me, but you're coming home now. Welcome back, beloved. This is presence. This is holy. This is life, and this is yours. My beloved, there are names the world gave you. Too much, not enough, overly sensitive, invisible, second best, and there are names you gave yourself. Failure, forgotten, heavy, unworthy. But before the world spoke, before fear shaped your labels, before you learned how to shrink, I named you, and I called you light. I didn't call you that because of how loud you were, or how strong, or how consistent. I didn't call you light because you had all the answers or because you never cried. I called you light because I placed myself inside you. Not the performative self, not the pretending self, not the projected self, but the soul, wounded and real, beautiful and bruised, longing and luminous. Yes, that you shine. I know you don't always feel like light. There are days you feel more like shadow, more like fog, more like ash than fire. But I have never revoked my word over you. You are light even in darkness, even in silence, even in the waiting. Because light isn't a mood, it's a mark. You were born of glory. Not ego, not pride, but eternal brilliance whispered into being. When I formed you, I wasn't just making a person. I was placing light on earth. You were never meant to live in hiding. You were made to illuminate, not with striving, but with presence. You walk into rooms and atmospheres shift, not because of force, but because of what you carry. Me, and now, child, I'm calling you to see yourself the way I always have, not as someone trying to become light, but someone who already is. You've spent years trying to earn what was always yours. You've tried to pray harder, be better, do more. You've tried to deserve what I already gave, but light can't be earned. It can only be received, and I say it again, you are light. Not because you never fall, but because you always rise. Not because you never doubt, but because you keep seeking. Not because you're unbroken, but because you've chosen to be open. To me, to healing, to transformation. And that openness, it lets the light shine through. So let the light out. Let it leak through your tears. Let it shimmer in your laughter. Let it tremble in your prayers. Let it blaze in your truth. You don't need a stage. You don't need a title. You don't need an audience. Your light is not dependent on applause. It was kindled by heaven. There are places only your light will reach. Hearts only your story can touch. Wounds only your presence can sit beside. Prayers only your voice will dare to speak. Don't underestimate the holy weight you carry, not to perform, but to reflect. You are not the source, but you are the mirror. And you reflect me when you live as you. So now walk like light, not hurried, not ashamed, not dimmed by other people's discomfort. Walk like someone who knows their name. You are not the background. You are not the backup plan. You are not forgotten. You are chosen. You are radiant. You are full. And where you go, light goes too. When you speak, let light be in it. When you listen, let light hold space. When you rest, let light be your warmth. When you struggle, let light be your reminder. You are not fighting for a place to shine. You already shine because of who you are. Let this be your new confession. I am not too late. I am not too much. I am not hidden. I am light. And I am the one who called you that. Before the voices, before the fear, before the pain, and I have not changed my mind. So rise, beloved, not to chase impact, but to live present, to walk whole, to radiate truth, not to prove light, but to be it, not to shout louder, but to shine gentler, not to demand space, but to inhabit the space already yours. The world is darker in places, yes, but light is never afraid of dark. Light never needs to panic, because light always knows who it is. And now, so do you. Shine in the quiet corners. Shine in your own home. Shine when no one's clapping. Shine when no one sees but me. And when the lies return, when the labels whisper again, when the old fear tells you to shrink, say my name, say your name. I am light, and I am his. You've returned, you've healed, you've risen, and now you go forward. Not as someone trying to be worthy, but as someone who already is. You are light, you are loved, you are mine. Now go and shine.